Hey guys, welcome to my special channel here that I love to conduct interview with doctors that I've been working with and who I see unique in their philosophy, how they practice, and then also their services they provide. And I see these doctors are helping so many patients through their practice. So I invited a special guest, spotlight for one of my colleagues that I've been helping with, Dr. Krishna Janson here. Doc, can you say hello to our audience here?
Hello, and thank you very much, TJ, Dr. An, for giving me this opportunity to talk today.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, kind of yourself, where you practice, how's your upbringing, where are you from, type of thing, so our audience know, more about you.
Okay, yeah, I work in Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, and I'm a very unusual podiatrist because I make custom-made, handmade orthotics from a plaster of Paris weight-bearing model of a patient's foot. And as far as I know, there's maybe 2 or 3 other podiatrists in the United States that do that kind of work. It's very time-consuming. It's a very low-volume type of practice because each device takes about 8 hours to make. So I can only help maybe 3 or 4 patients a week.
Oh, wow. So how long have you been practicing?
Well, I graduated in 1989, just to date myself, and then I did a sort of an apprenticeship in orthotics with an old podiatrist back in the early 90s.
So was he like your mentor? Was he your mentor?
Yes, absolutely, because I had done a very high-powered surgical residency, and I did a lot of bunion surgeries and heel spur surgeries. So I saw my future at that time in surgery. Looking back, I'm glad that I had a surgical background because I think it helps me now to see, what different treatments are out there. And then I got a job just for some extra money helping the old podiatrist make orthotics. And the first day I was on the job, he said, "Now listen, I don't like surgery, and we don't want to talk about surgery at all." And I went home and I cried because I thought that was terrible. and then maybe 10 years later, I had decided to give up surgery and just work on the orthotics because every podiatrist did surgery, but nobody was doing this type of work, not in New York. So, and then I remembered crying, and I'm thinking, wow, here I am, 10 years later, I'm doing exactly what the old doctor told me, which was to just work on orthotics and not do surgery.
Nice. So tell me more about your, sounds like that's your niche. I already know because you're my client, but for the audience, how different is this compared to typical conventional way of custom-made orthotics that I'd say 99% of podiatrists in the United States here and probably all over the world, most of them do more conventional method to make custom insoles for their patients. So can you share with us how different your process is? You said 8 hours, so can you go
Yes, it's radically different. If this were 50 years ago, it would not be different because that's how all the podiatrists used to make their own orthotics. But over time, it was just, when with health insurance plans and whatnot, it just became much more feasible for the podiatrist to hire someone else to make the orthotics. It was just it wasn't practical for the podiatrist to spend an entire day, helping one patient making one pair of orthotics. So they use commercial laboratories and people who just make orthotics for them. So they send a cast or whatnot, and then the orthotic comes back and the podiatrist dispenses the orthotic. And I would say that works, the majority of the time that's going to be helpful to the patient, say 80 or 90% of the time even, standard orthotics really work. But that's not my typical patient. My typical patient has had pain for years and they've had MRIs, and they might have had surgery for their problem, or they've had many pairs of orthotics. That's common. The patient comes in with 2 or 3 pairs of orthotics. Last week I saw 4 new patients, and every single one of them was crying as they told me their story, because as they tell it, they're listening to themselves sort of objectively, realizing what they've been through. So that's a typical patient of mine.
So what type of pain? What type of pain are they, come with?
They might have some kind of unusual medical problem. So, for example, I see a lot of scleroderma patients, and that's a condition where the skin and soft tissue becomes hardened with fibrotic tissue or scar tissue over time, and it's a very difficult thing to treat. And scleroderma is very rare. There's maybe 250,000 people in the United States with that disease. But I'll see that once a day or even twice a day in my office, because it's a very difficult thing to treat with orthotics. So I'll see a very unusual medical condition. There's one condition, I call it Janson's foot. It's so unusual, and I see it all the time, and I call it Janson's foot, which I won't go into the details of it, but I'll see that every day, and then go into a medical convention where they show a picture of Janson's foot and say, oh, you'll never see this condition, so let's just skip this slide, So I see very unusual conditions.
Wait, so hold on. So Janson's condition, are you talking about your own condition?
No, I call it Janson's foot because I just see it all the time, and it's, how there's Charcot foot? So these doctors, they name these conditions with their own name. So there's a particular condition that I have called Janson's foot because it's unrecognized in the literature because it's so rare.
Is it you're talking about more foot type or more symptoms that they experience with?
It's a foot type. So it's a foot type, like you would say Pez varus is a foot type, or a diseased foot type like Charcot foot. So, without going into
this is not typical, so that it's kind of hard to do it even with the custom orthotic process way of conventional way that you have to send the test out, so that, it's hard to categorize, in your opinion, so that when you recognize this, it's kind of huge advantage because you make your own.
Right, and I've seen it so many times before. So another podiatrist would look at it and say, oh my goodness, what is this? So for example, I'm sent patients from podiatrists. Last week I was sent a patient from a podiatrist with bilateral foot drop. So that's a very difficult problem. So I am sent problems from podiatrists. Another time I had a patient sent from a podiatrist who went to a free foot exam, and the doctor said to the patient, look, I don't even know what this condition is. I don't recognize it, but I know this other podiatrist. She's a woman, and she sees a lot of unusual problems, so I'm going to send you to her. And she had something called Marfan's disease, which is that the ligaments are very, very loose. So the foot was dislocated on the ankle. So the podiatrist didn't recognize the problem.
So you're not only seeing typical heel pain or conventional drop foot or flat feet or pronation syndrome, but then you get to see these unusual conditions that most doctors unfortunately fail to treat, these conditions that sometimes these people come to you.
They fail to recognize it only because it's so rare. They just never see it. And my practice is that the patient with the very unusual foot problem will tell their doctor that they received help from me, and then that doctor will, get the word out that other patients could come and see me. So the patients usually come from doctors, and that's why I really appreciate you interviewing me today, because one of my problems is that I have to find these patients. So these patients, like I said, the scleroderma patient, which is 1 in a million patients, because there's 200 whatever, it's like 1 in a million really. So how do I find these patients? So I have been finding them in the past just through word of mouth. So and then when I see one of these unusual patients, I always think to myself, wow, it's really lucky that the patient found me, because I take a patient who doesn't walk, they stay at home all day, or they come in with crutches and cam walker boots, and they're really not walking. And then within a month or two, I can get these people walking and happy and, fulfilling their goals. And then I think back and I think, wow, it was almost pure luck that the patient had a friend who had been my patient. So this, you interviewing me is great, and I hope that people see this and can come in, and they've been to other doctors and you know, have had the problem for years and are looking for help. Last week I had a patient come in from San Diego. She flew in just for me to make her orthotics. She has a stiff big toe joint, but she also has an inverted foot. So if you put support around the big toe joint, you'll invert the foot even more. So standard orthotics don't work for a patient like that. And she's a retired nurse. She's very intelligent. It was expensive for her to fly and get a hotel and everything. But it was worth it because without me making her orthotics, she can't walk.
Wonderful. So those are the conditions. How different now? How do you make it? Kind of give us like 2-3 minute process so that people who might be watching this, either doctors or potential patients who might be looking for this type of service, they kind of understand what's going through behind the scene, you know, about the handmade orthotics.
Right, and it's 8 hours, but it's not all in a row. Because when I'm with the patient, I have to watch the patient walk and measure the legs and look at the posture of the patient. And then I take a weight-bearing impression of the foot because I want to see the foot and have a model of the foot as it is with weight on it, you know, as it is walking. So that's really important. And then from that impression, I pour plaster of Paris into it to make a positive foot model. And then the most important part of what I do and what makes my orthotics different from other orthotics is that I carve the plaster cast, or I add plaster, or both to the cast. So I change the shape of the cast to have the foot not be the shape that it is, but the shape that it should be. And that's called intrinsic posting, because that means that the shape is in the body of the orthotic. So I can get a lot of support, but it's very gentle and it doesn't hurt the patient. Versus extrinsic posting, which is putting material on the outside of the cast. And I actually do that too, you know, to some extent if the patient needs it. But intrinsic posting is really you know, the key to the success of my orthotics.
Okay, and then again, you have your own handmade orthotic lab in your in your own vicinity. And then
and that's where I am now. I'm in New Jersey. I'm on the Jersey Shore. So Thursday nights I start pouring my plaster. I have a special humidifier. I have special warming pads for the cast. They have to warm slowly. And I have a special filter that I pour the plaster through, and I have a special plaster pump in my plumbing because you don't want the plaster to go in the plumbing of the house. So you know, it's very involved to pour the plaster cast. I need a lot of equipment for that. I also need my stand where I pour. That has to be completely and absolutely level, you know, both right and left and you know, north, south, east, and west. Very level so that the cast comes out perfect. And then the next day, then I start working on the plaster of Paris cast. So I have to alter that. That takes about 3 hours just to alter it, you know, adding plaster and taking away. It's very tedious work, adding and, you know, getting the foot to be what it should be. That's a very tedious work. And then it has to dry again after I've wet it from adding or subtracting plaster. So then the next day, which is usually Saturday, is when I start making the shell of the orthotic. And then Sunday, the fourth day, I start grinding the orthotic. I do a rough grind on the orthotic. And then I bring the orthotics to my Manhattan office, and there I start doing the fine grind. And then the patient comes in, and I again grind the orthotic to fit the shoes. So the whole thing probably really takes more than 8 hours if you include the time.
It is. Actually, by listening to this, I'm sure the audience would appreciate this. It's not just 8 hours. I mean, it'll take 4 or 5 days, and these expertise getting into this one pair of orthotics that you're putting your effort, time, and expertise into. This is not typical. This is definitely not replicable by majority of podiatrists, and no wonder this is a unique niche that you provide. When it comes to orthotics, so remember I call you this is like a Bentley of handmade orthotics, or like Hermes of orthotics. When it comes to orthotics, who does this handmade orthotics? I haven't met anyone around me.
You told me Gucci. I would be the Gucci.
Gucci, yeah, Gucci. So yeah, I'm not endorsing any particular, branding here, but what I'm saying is that you need that branding if you really want to be good at one niche. That first of all, you cannot fake it, so you have to be good at it. And then now number two is that marketing. You need to send these messages out there, and number three, you need to learn and implement how to convey this communication with your patients, so you can influence their decision making, so that you can help them accept your treatment solutions, so you can help them. If they don't accept your treatment, that deep down you believe in this particular way of treatment solution is the best, but if you don't know how to communicate the right way, patients might pass this opportunity, and basically patients will suffer again. So it's almost like our obligation to provide them not only the best solution, but also communicate with them so that they happily accept your treatment, and which I've been seeing now. You're delivering crazy results for your own practice, building up, and also helping all these patients and happy patient testimonials. So, this is great. Well, again, we can talk more, but obviously she now has her own YouTube channel, and also if you join her, network through her, marketing messages and then her mini websites, you can actually subscribe to her email list, so that she sends out, helpful resources like every week, that you can learn more about all these conditions, right?
Yes, yeah. I write a big blog article once a month, and then all the YouTube videos and whatnot that we put out has a theme.
Awesome.
So this is August, so our theme is dehydration.
Dehydration is your theme for August.
Hydration.
So again, she's definitely outside the box thinker, philosopher, and practitioner with very unique way of practicing. Anything unusual that people would never think about you when it comes to your hobby and passion, would you like to share with the audience?
Something unusual about me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a prankster, so and sometimes I make like a New Year's resolution not to play pranks on people, but so that's one thing, just terrible desire to play pranks on people. But the patients and I have a lot of fun. I'm also a professional puppeteer. I do work with puppets for children's charities.
Awesome.
I do that. So I'm obviously crafty because I work with my hands all the time. And I'm very devoted to lifestyle and fitness tips for patients. So that's another passion of mine. And I'm working on my book. So the patients always ask, "When's that book coming out?" So
someday.
One day I'll finish my book. So those are my passions.
So guys, I'm going to put description below in this video, or you might be listening to podcast or watching YouTube, but I'll put Christina's practice information in the description, her website, her contact info, so you can get to know more about her. If you're a patient and you might be thinking that, oh, maybe Dr. Janson can help me, go make sure check out that description and then visit her site and then get to know more about her. I'm sure she's willing to help you no matter what it takes. That's her personality. And then again, thank you for joining this interview. Thank you for watching this. And just don't forget to subscribe or follow this channel so that you don't miss out any other future episodes. Well, thank you. It's been great, Christina. And then I'll see you
so
pretty soon.
Thank you, Dr. An.
All right. Bye.
Bye.